Hello and welcome to this evening's Empower Hour, brought to you by Empower Our Future. My name is Mary Pettigrew, and I'm a member of the Empower Our Future communications team. And now I will read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. Let us seek to understand what it means to be in right relationship today with the traditional stewards of this land and with this land itself and with all the creatures that inhabit it. So, without further ado, I would love to introduce Go Electric Colorado, a 4-year-old volunteer-driven nonprofit that helps Coloradans electrify and decarbonize their homes through free data-driven home consultations and electrification plans. They offer virtual and on-site consultations to help homeowners demystify the home electrification process by creating sensible, step-by-step priorities tailored to their home and budget. They're a group of front-range climate activists, techies, and engineers who have made measurable carbon reductions in their own homes and love sharing climate, contractor, and energy literacy with their community. And tonight, we are pleased to be joined by Stu Cummings, one of the co-founders of Go Electric Colorado, along with Paul Bosquet and Ed Kean. Paul has spent the past 5 years learning about and sharing his passion for personal climate action. In 2022, Paul joined Go Electric Colorado, the nonprofit dedicated to reducing greenhouse gases from buildings and transportation across Colorado. Paul has since led several initiatives and pilot projects aimed at reducing measurable CO2 emissions by helping homeowners improve the efficiency of their homes and switch from gas to electric appliances for heating, water heating, and cooking. Stuart Cummings is, again, the co-founder of Go Electric Colorado. He's an electrification coach, and his background includes aerospace engineering and at the U.S. Naval Academy. I assume that was your degree there. He was a naval aviator, flight test pilot for Grumman Aerospace, commercial pilot flying Tigers for Federal Express. Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. Please feel free to clarify that, Stu, if I got that wrong. It sounds like actually you were a commercial pilot for both Flying Tigers and FedEx. You're a B777 captain retired from Federal Express and also a member of the Native Plant Trust, which was formerly the New England Wildflower Society, the Colorado Native Plant Society, and a certified forester. Our third guest, Ed Kean, decarbonized his home and vehicles years ago and recently 2 of his rental homes. He helped form GoElectricColorado.org and currently serves as a heat pump coach, debunker, and rebate whisperer. He also serves his community of Lions, Colorado, as a Sustainable Future Commissioner and is Lions representative to Colorado Communities for Climate Action lobby, and is part of a group helping to enforce EPA, Colorado Health Department, and Boulder County's land use regulations at the Lions Cemex cement factory. So without further ado, I will hand things over to Go Electric Colorado. Thank you guys so much for being our guest tonight.
Thank you, Mary. A great intro. And my name is Paul Bosquet, as Mary mentioned. I am one of the directors of Go Electric Colorado. We are here, and I'll share my slides now, if I may. What we do is we help homeowners on their journey. Everybody has an opportunity to take direct climate action by decarbonizing their home. What the heck is decarbonization of your home, for gosh sakes? Most of us in this state are still burning fossil fuels to heat our home, cook our food, dry our laundry, things like that, heat our water, and drive our cars. So if we want to decarbonize, we find it, most practical to start at home. So we help people understand what it takes and what are logical steps for them, given their budget, their home. There's a whole bunch of interesting variables in this. So let me just talk about, we 40% of greenhouse gas emissions in this country come from buildings. And 57% of our home emissions come from the heating and cooling of our homes, 19% from water heating. So you can see there's a giant opportunity to decarbonize our heating, cooling, and water heating. This is a nice little screenshot of a pie chart, shows how much energy in Colorado we use for space heating. It's a whopping 52%. So we have a lot of opportunity. And many people are starting to realize, hey, I think it's a good idea to stop burning fossil fuels. Great. One of my management gurus of all time, Peter Drucker, once said that the problem with good ideas is that they rapidly deteriorate into hard work. So we're here to make that work a little bit easier. Um, Over our few years in existence, we have helped homeowners eliminate 10,000 tons of carbon emissions, equaling or equivalent of driving 25 million miles in ICE vehicles. How do we do this? Well, we help people stage by stage through a plan, talking to them one-on-one about their particular home and their particular budget, timeline, goals, objectives, etc. And we are open and excited to talk to anyone about transforming their heating from a standard gas-fired appliance in their home to a heat pump, whether that's air to water or air to air. We're happy to talk to them about heat pump water heaters, about EVs. A huge piece of this is your home is often your best connection for your EV for convenience. And so there's a part of decarbonizing your home that is putting in an EV charger and buying an EV to charge. Solar and storage are very pivotal to all of that. More so now, especially with Excel doing shutoffs and people concerned about blackouts and power outages and all that stuff. So then we'll talk about incentives with people, and we talk about cooking and laundry because they're not as big, but they can be a really important part of doing one last step in the process of decarbonizing your home. And that is that for many of the folks on this call, removing the gas meter from your house, having the utility, whether you're Xcel or somewhere else, come cap it off and take the meter away. And at least in Xcel's territory, that eliminates about $100 to $120 per year off your utility bill. So that's a great way to reinvest that money to electrification. I'm going to pass it off now to Stuart and Edward, who have been doing this for a number of years.
Great. Thank you, Paul. It's 4.5 years. Go ahead and hit the slide. There's other reasons besides reducing gas consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. It's always amazing that we don't think too much about what goes on behind the scenes. Last night, I watched a YouTube video of moving a oil drilling rig, which was constructed in Korea and then got dragged up to Norway behind the largest tugboat in the world. So the infrastructure that's behind the delivery of the natural gas is even crazier, I think. I haven't measured it, but it seems incredibly crazy if you think about the mining, the refining, the shipping, the piping, the pumping, and especially when you think about gasoline going to every gas station. So go ahead and advance that. Try to think about this stuff a little deeper than just putting a heat pump in your house. Go ahead, Paul. Oh, we can just, all right. Go back one. Yeah. So we help people dig themselves out of rabbit holes. If you're tempted to decarbonize your life, or just your house, or just your water heater, or your cooktop, this for some people can create a bit of a rabbit hole, and they might not even know they're in it. So it's just a great idea to be able to talk to your neighbor, find out what they were up against, how they did it, what contractor they used, how much did it cost. I'm a naturally curious person, so I wanted to know all that 4.5 years ago. And boy, it was really hard to figure that stuff out. So as an example, people talk about heat pumps. What are those? Well, there's heat pumps, there's cold climate heat pumps, there's cold climate air source heat pumps. All three of those are basically the same, except they're not. The one that I like the best, nobody talks about, that's the colder than cold climate heat pump. Go ahead. So for that rabbit hole, we hope you'll contact us and we can go over that in more detail. Something else people frequently do not think about is what is our climate? If we need to heat our building, wouldn't it be great to understand what's going on? So a really amazing engineer in the Boulder area took the temperature data collected at the Boulder airport and he graphed it. And I don't expect you to be able to see that on your screen. So I'll tell you a little bit about what it says. The red bars represent 5,500 hours per year that we need heat in our homes. So along the bottom from left to right are temperatures, 5-degree temperature increments. So this is showing minus 20 up to 60 degrees in red. The green is a period of time where we don't need any heat and we don't need any air conditioning typically. And then the blue are the few hours per year that we need some air conditioning, at least based on this 10-year study. Go ahead and advance. So if we look very carefully at all that, I boiled it down to two important numbers. Our homes in the Boulder area basically we're looking at 15 hours that we spend below zero and close to 5,000 hours between 0 and 60. When you're designing a heating system and it's not an oversized furnace, we're trying to put in a really fine machine like a heat pump. It's a great idea to be able to understand this and what that means for the design. Next. On the left, you see a air handler. It looks like a furnace. So if you do have a ducted home, a furnace, that's going to come out and air handler is going to go in. There are other types of air handlers. People call them mini splits. And the one in the middle on the right is a classic mini split on the wall. Another version is up in the ceiling. There's some really nice ones now that are sort of down low on the walls. And they typically have remotes. So if you don't have ductwork, you'll probably be looking at mini splits. Go ahead. Heat pump water heaters are amazing. If you're running an old gas water heater right now, your electric bills are going to be far lower than your gas bills because they are so efficient. And so here's another rabbit hole is how could you have 4.7 efficiency? Well, you can, because when we burn something, we need to dig it up, like I said, ship it, find it, burn it, send the emissions out into our Colorado Front Range EPA certified non-containment zone, one of the most polluted places in the US. With this thing, we're just going to move some heat from the air in your basement and stick it into the water. And by not burning anything, by just running a couple of small motors, we can generate 4 or 5 units of energy for every 1 unit of energy we put into it. Go ahead. There are some amazing rebates going on right now. If you're in Excel, if you're either a gas or electric customer or just a gas customer, you could take advantage of their energy audit, which is an important step in a good process to change out your equipment. And they rebate that to the tune of $200 of typically around 400-ish. Weatherization is the concept of tightening your home so we're not leaking heat, and also further insulating your home. And when I say ish, I'm the rebate whisperer for our group. So when you contact us for help, we can whittle that down to a more firm number, but it tends to be around that number, a little bit less, a little bit more, depending on what needs to be done. And XL is covering that through the payments you've been making for your whole lives, paying for utilities. Thank you, Colorado PUC and conscious government. On the HVAC system, on the heat pump installs, it's typically currently a range around 4,000 to 6,000, depending on the actual equipment. And on the water heaters, XL is offering $2,250 per water heater install. Kind of amazing numbers. With the new laws regulating what kind of furnace you can get, it's now a no-brainer to put in a heat pump system. We're even wondering if the new furnaces are even available from the Colorado distributors. Further, the state of Colorado has some, what they call heat pump tax credits, and they're $1,000 total. 333 has to be credited to you. The contractors that we've been enjoying lately are crediting the full 1,000. And we have a group called Power Ahead, which is more federal funding, finally arriving here, which is going to create a $1,500 credit coming soon. They're saying this summer. So the amazing contractors know about all this stuff. They know how to help you get it, and so does Go Electric Colorado. Paul? All right, so everything we do is free, and we are volunteers. We are your neighbors. We're just excited about doing this stuff. We've done it to our homes, and we know how good it is, and we haven't talked about the health benefits or how comfortable your house will be after you do this and do it well. And it's as simple as going to goelectriccolorado.org or using this little scanning, whatever that thing is there on your phone. And you can book a free consultation with one of our coaches, and we will talk to you, find out what's going on, review bids that you might collect from your contractors, help you understand the energy audit results, talk about running costs. There's really no limit to it. And we do follow-up calls as necessary from beginning to end, whether that takes a month or 2 years or whatever. So we're very happy to do that for free as your neighbor in the spirit of helping and doing the right thing on behalf of our kids and our grandkids. So at this point, we quickly went through some slides there, and I realized I went really fast, and that was on purpose, because what we found is that people want to ask questions. They want to get into what they're concerned about. And I gave you an overview, but I'd like to find out now what questions you guys have. We'd like to try to tackle those.
So this is Chris with Empower Our Future, and I'm going to just want to encourage people to put your questions into the Q&A. You'll see the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen, and just type in your questions. And we can start with a couple. Well, first a little plug. Stuart and Edward came out to our house a couple of years ago. Very helpful, and now we've got a heat pump system in the house, and we're quite comfortable and happy with it. So their help really helped us narrow down some of our questions and get into the kind of system that we wanted. So I'm waiting to see some questions in the chat, in the Q&A, so please put your questions in there. Here's one that comes in from can a hot water heat pump use external air? So how does that work? How does a hot water heat pump work? You mentioned being in the basement, but I've heard of them being in closet, in crawl spaces, and in garages. And so how does that actually work?
Yeah, garages not so much, crawl spaces probably not. Basements for sure, closets, yes. There are systems too where we could have, similar to the heat pump heating and cooling, where you have an outdoor unit and the indoor air handler, in this case, outdoor unit, indoor tank. And so we can help you figure out those brands. There's only one or two. And basically all the work gets done outside and hot water comes piping into a storage tank.
Great. Thank you. Here's a question from Jessica. Would you all be willing to come up to give an in-person homeowner-facing presentations in Summit County? If so, is the best way to coordinate by reaching out via the Contact Us button on the Go Electric Colorado website?
You know, we're going to leave our phone numbers here at the end. The Empower Hour folks are going to distribute that. I would prefer a direct phone call to set that up. Stu and I have been, and Paul have been speaking all over the state. Recently, I was in Winter Park. I'm happy to go to Summit County, and likely Stu is as well. So yes, big yes on that.
Super.
I assume, Jessica, that many of you know that XL Energy's Mountain Pipeline project means there's a greater demand for electrification up in Summit County and some of our resort towns because the pipeline that carries natural gas up to those mountain communities is rapidly reaching its capacity, and they have done the math, and it is actually cheaper and a lot better for the environment if they pump electrons up the mountain instead of digging up the gas pipeline and expanding the diameter so that it can carry greater capacity. So XL is very eager to see electrification going on in Summit County and environs.
Great. And here's a response from Jessica. She says, I work for a nonprofit that is helping for outreach on that project. And so I guess that's the one you were just talking about, the pipeline project. And we're trying to get more people to sign up for those rebates. So it sounds like this is a match made in heaven. So if she calls up and arranges with you folks, you can go up and do that. That's great. Here's another question. There's Dave Penscover. Dave from Go Electric Colorado is on the call as well. Reach out to Edward and Stu or email Dave at goelectriccolorado.org. So that's Dave at goelectriccolorado, all one word, .org, and we will coordinate. Super. Okay. And let's see. So there's a question from Paul. Who does the work in my home? And another question, what is the typical installed cost of a heat pump water heater? So there are two for you to chew on.
So lately, I've been watching the water heater installs. They can be done either by plumbers, pretty rare, or very common is the heating, ventilation, air conditioning installers known as HVAC installers. And the range of pricing we've seen on the water heater with the HVAC folks is around 6,000 to 8,000, including all the parts and everything. But we've recently found a plumber in the Denver metro region who does it a little closer to $4,000. So these are some of the features of grabbing a coach. Is you can help save some money and still get a great process. As far as the heat pump, air to the house, outdoor indoor unit, we're seeing a range for typical homes around, I'm going to say as low as 16,000 and as high as 25,000 seems to be the range. But the pricing on these types of services is still wild, wild west out there. As we watch contractors try to shift away from what they've done so well for us, for all of us, for so many years, the furnace business. There's a little catch up they're doing, and that Power Ahead program is also helping them get the training and all that they need. We found a handful of folks that are very well trained and very capable of doing it, and that's the price range that we're seeing. You know, each house is different size, different situation. If we're going up in the mountains at a higher altitude and it's colder, it's going to be a different system, might cost a little bit more. Pricing on mini split versus ducted is a little different, mini split being a little more expensive typically. So I hope that helps, but book an actual consultation with us on our website, and we'll be able to be more precise.
Great. Here's a related question about the capability of in the cold weather. How cold can it be for these still to be efficient, not just acting as resistive heating, but actually being heaters?
Yeah, so on the previous slides, I listed 4 different types of heat pumps. And the heat pump that's designed to be in Alabama is not going to be any good at all here in Colorado. But at the very least, a cold climate heat pump that XL would recognize as good for their rebates would be kind of a middle of the road system. And of course, they also recognize the colder than cold climate heat pumps. So there's a whole bunch of, there's not a whole bunch, there's 2 or 3 or 4 major brands that are able to create full capacity all the way down to 0 degrees and then partial capacity below that. If your house is well insulated, it's well weatherized, it's not leaking very much, the house is able to coast through even for several days and nights and not even notice that it got down to -20. So again, we get into the detailed coaching, we can help you fully understand what that means. And we can think clearly about how much we need to worry about that. But the previous slide showed 15 hours below 0. That 15 hours is less than a day's worth of hours. So the contractors are going to spend a lot of time worrying about that, and they really shouldn't. They should worry a little bit more about the weatherization and finding the right equipment that's very capable at low temperatures.
Under what circumstances would you recommend a ground source heat pump?
Stu?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one. Yeah. Yeah. We tend to, for our average consult, we generally don't recommend that. If the homeowner asks about it, if they have the means, if they just want to spend extra money, then we'll run with that. But given the expense and this disruption, we steer the vast majority of our clients to air source heat pumps. They're far more deployable, affordable, and the difference in coefficient of performance between really good, the kind of cold climate heat pump Ed's going to talk you into, the colder than cold climate heat pump versus air sources is pretty small. So the differential, the performance differential is probably never going to pay itself off. Having said that, if we see multifamily, and we're doing this, we're consulting for townhomes, condo associations, then absolutely. And that's another term for that is district heating, where you're doing a group of buildings or exceptionally large building. If we're out in the unincorporated space, we're looking at a 6,000 square foot home, they got a lot of money, go for it. Go for it. But air source is so good now. Again, so affordable, so deployable. Just like their cars. Ed mentioned there's several brands. There's actually more coming. The Chinese, naturally, they already make the best EVs, the best cars in the world, and heat pumps are following shortly. So they're going to be mass producing those pretty soon, and the specs on their stuff is as good as the leading Japanese brands now. So we generally going to recommend air source, but we can certainly run with ground source if you want it.
Here's a question from Heidi. We live in a multifamily 350 unit condo complex. The natural gas infrastructure is both entrenched and complicated. Is a coaching consult plausible?
It would be one of my dreams to help a 350 unit project become electrified. I would love to help with that. We are currently working on 4,000 homes in a community in Lakewood. We've just gotten started on it. Some of the new money money that's been sitting here that arrived from the feds that snuck through, that money, I believe, is going to be called HER. And there's too many acronyms to remember what the heck that stands for. But I believe that money, which is going to be in the millions, is going to be targeted at that type of property.
So that sounds like a good possibility then. Have you ever seen a heat pump that uses a pond or lake as the heat source or sink?
Yes, we're aware of those as well. It's another form of geothermal, but instead of tapping the stable ground temperatures, we're tapping the relatively stable water temperatures.
Yeah, that falls into the category. That falls into the category of geothermal. It's the same thing. It's like a Cornell University did a few years ago. They ran a pipe to the bottom of Lake Cayuga, which I used to water ski on. And it's freezing. It's just above freezing down there, and they use that for their air conditioning for a heat pump.
Mm,
So, and in fact, when you drill wells for a heat pump, the driller is looking for that type of soil, wet soil, soil where heat transfer works better as opposed to dry, hard rock where heat transfer is poor. So
mm,
we're always looking for water. Yeah.
mm.
Probably
Yeah.
going to need something more significant than just a pond, though. We're going to need a pretty good sized body of water that's pretty close to the buildings.
Yeah.
Mm. What is the water? Here's from Jim Morris. What's the water heater solution for a small house with a crawl space and no garage? Should a tankless instant heater that heats only what you use be considered? I have two mini splits and PV panels.
If we can find a closet, right now, that person probably has a water heater, a gas tank water heater, and if so, the heat pump water heater would take its place. But it is again, it's another item where there's the 9 things you wish you knew before you did that. And
Mhm.
we have been working on that and studying that. And we're happy to hook you up with folks that know how to do that well.
So my last consult yesterday was just 800 square feet, 800 square feet, and we are handily getting a heat pump hot water heater in there, and we're going to duct the cold air, into an appropriate place. So that's the kind of thing we can do for you.
Mhm. Okay. Um, Another question is, um, what are some of the biggest challenges you run into in your consulting work?
Go, Stu, go.
Oh man, this is too good, really. The legacy. Well, I don't want to pick on the contracting community is a challenge, both and the consumer. Just misinformation. We just swim in a sea of misinformation across all subjects. And when it comes to heating and cooling, we still hear from probably the majority of legacy HVAC installers that heat pumps don't work in cold weather. Daikin's test pad up in Montana runs down to minus 50 Fahrenheit. And to answer an earlier question in a little more detail, the heat pump that Ed Kean and I are going to sell you, if you will, it's going to be rated. It's going to work, put out the majority of its heat all the way past minus 20, minus 25 Fahrenheit. So misinformation.
Mhm. Um, and what goals do you have for Go Electric Colorado? There's work ahead, obviously, but at some point, everybody's going to have one. So, what's your trajectory?
Everybody's going to have one. Wow.
That's
My
our
goal
goal.
would be to, yeah, be able to tell my granddaughter when I get I get closer, that I did what I could between 4.5 years ago and whenever that day comes.
Mm, thanks.
I think
Go ahead.
I'll have a few words to add to that. So, right now, although many of us in Go Electric and we talk amongst ourselves, we call it kind of the collective conscious, sharing information about heat pumps and electrification. We, we recognize that although we've all done it, we're still looking for early adapters. This is not quite mainstream in the US. It is in Japan. It is, and I mean the cold islands of Japan. I mean the Scandinavian peninsula. This technology, I think it's Norway, is about 90% heat pump driven heating for their homes. But we are still looking for the early adopters, and I think that's our goal, is to get past this kind of bumpy phase where there's still a lot of contractors out there that they installed one or two heat pumps they got from their distributor at a great deal, and they were really made for Alabama or Arizona, where they're an amazingly efficient air conditioner and a pretty wimpy heater, but they're great for Alabama where it's cold. A cold day is called 40 degrees.
Mm,
So there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of need for workforce development, more highly skilled tech people, especially folks who can do proper sizing. It's not the old cookie cutter way of like somebody goes in the coveralls and they get in your crawl space or wherever your furnace is, and they look at it and they go, oh, yep, 72,000 BTUs. Well, we'll just get a 7,000 BTU heat pump in here then. Doesn't work that way. You can put it in, but it isn't going to work the way it should, and the homeowner's going to pay a price for that. So there's a lot going on in sizing, heat load calculation, understanding the equipment, and we just have to be both patient and impatient with the industry to help move this needle along.
Mm. Here's another question. Do you know how much new residential construction is installing heat pumps for hot water and space heating? I mean, how much is it going into the new construction?
I don't
Great
know that we
question.
have the data on that, but I've looked into new construction projects with builders, architects, and engineers. And if those folks are aware of what's available, they're going to choose that every time. Because if you're starting from scratch, you're just going to put the right stuff in. Unless you're a builder who is trying to squeeze every single penny, in which case maybe you have a truckload of furnaces that you want that are left over that are still legal because they got in before the new laws kicked in January. So it varies. And then the other thing is the marketing of a home that's energy efficient, that's comfortable, where we're not burning stuff inside and therefore very healthy, to breathe in, is an incredible marketing tool for conscious builders. They know that people are thinking about this stuff and they can sell their homes on that basis. I hope that helps.
There's two recent webinars that I sat in on. One was about a developer in the Las Cruces, New Mexico area, and he just develops the land and then sells it to a home builder or small group of home builders. And he has been experimenting, but he's now stopped building lots, putting in the utilities for gas anymore. So if you want to build on his lots, he's got the land, it's all ready to go. He's putting in electric infrastructure, he's not putting in gas, and he says it's saving builders between $5,000 and $10,000 per home because they don't have to pipe it for electric and gas. They don't have to put any vents or penetrations through the ceiling to vent out the carbon emissions and other noxious material from burning fossil fuels. So there's a ton of savings by not putting in that infrastructure. And then the other one was a Colorado name, Pulte Homes, did an experimental subdivision outside of, I think it was Fresno or Visalia, California, all electric homes. They sold really well, and they could not, and this is another thing that we see, one of the complaints we sometimes have is a lot of contractors are saying, oh, you want to put in a heat pump? Oh, you want an EV charger too? Oh, you might want an induction stove. Oh, you're going to need an electrical panel upgrade. It's pretty rare that you actually need one, but is that an easy way to, go, yeah, just give them a new electric panel? Well, that could be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. And Pulte used this test case in California. They put in 200 amp service panels and they could not run everything at once and max out the 200 amps. And they put on everything in the house and still had to run like table saws and other things outside to try and even get close to 200 amps. So, electric, there's a lot of misnomers out there. But a lot of the contractors are starting, and so is really a lot of the building codes across the state are starting to look at if we are going to, and nobody's saying we're not going to keep trying to get to net zero by 2050. There's a lot that has to happen. Retrofit homes and new homes that have to be built fully electric, and we need to bring more renewables onto the grid, which we're doing, which is why, and I want to go back to a point we made earlier in the talk, that when we say decarbonize your home, somebody might say, well, yeah, you're just punting the football down the road because that electricity is coming from somewhere. And you're absolutely right, it is. And about 30 years ago, 90% of our electricity was coming from gas and coal-fired power plants. And now the number of renewables on the grid is over 40%, rapidly heading towards somewhere in the vicinity of 70% by 2030. So that when you decarbonize your home, the electrons that are getting to it to power the equipment you've put in is going to be 70% wind, nuclear, solar, hydro, etc. So that's what we mean by decarbonizing.
Here's a follow-up question for one of your previous comments. You mentioned some new laws that started in January about, and the question was, what were those new laws?
When the contractor goes to the big distributor house in Denver to pick up the furnace, and they're going to find that the law controls what type of furnace they can purchase and install in your home. In the past, it was willy-nilly, whatever kind of furnace you wanted. The new law says that it must meet some standards. It's very much like what happened in the 70s with cars when we started adding emissions controls. So these new furnaces are known as low NOx or no NOx, NOx being nitrogen oxides emissions. This is how we got our lovely label from the EPA of non-containment area, whole front range. Yeah, so we're wondering now, are the distributors even going to carry these furnaces? Because the math just doesn't look very good. When you compare that to a heat pump system, it just doesn't pan out, doesn't pencil out too well. And then the question is, can you even get one of these furnaces? Like, is anybody making them? And the answer is probably yes, but it's similar to what Paul just said about the code. It's less expensive right now in some jurisdictions, like Boulder County, for instance, to just do an all-electric new build. You have to try really hard to put in gas. You have to somehow use the prescriptive code to get around the obvious way to do it. And it's going to cost you a bunch of extra money. So we're watching this and wondering what's going to happen. It'll further erode people's interest and ability to have furnaces.
Mm-hmm. So
The other,
a couple of questions and follow up from James Morris that I'm not sure everybody could see. James asked about a crawl space with vents and specifics about his situation. And David Penscover from Go Electric Colorado just said, please, would love to dive into the details with you. Schedule a free consult at goelectriccolorado.org. And then another question is battery storage? What about battery storage? What are your comments about that?
Stuart.
Yeah, man, if I got a battery to show you. So yes, it's a good idea. How much, what kind? Again, sign up with us and we'll help you. Um, one thing Ed hasn't mentioned, his house, Dave Penscover's house, the guy who called in, we're all coaches, and all of our homes are, I think, all electric. And we experiment a lot. I'll speak for my own house. And we've had batteries in this house since 2016, 2017. And with Dave Penscover's help, in fact, we just swapped out an old lead acid battery bank. That was my first generation AGM Suntech commercial lead acid batteries. We swapped those out for, we have a new lithium ferrous, Chinese built, of course, state of the art battery pack in my garage now. And I'm still experimenting with that. Making the inverter talk to it, the solar panels work with it. It's a lot of fun. So we have a lot of expertise in batteries, and there's a million options out there. And amazingly, batteries from China somehow have escaped the tariff structure. So the battery prices continue to plummet. It is a great time to buy a battery, backup battery for your house, whether or not you have solar panels. You can get these great units. They cast around on wheels. Looks like on roll-on luggage. Get them as big as you want. We'll tell you what size we'd recommend, and they can just sit in the corner of your house, trickle charging. And when the grid goes down, you just plug your fridge into it and all your other stuff, your modem and your computers into it. It's that simple.
Have
So
you
yes, batteries, yes.
related to batteries, have you had experience or know of anybody who's using um, batteries from EVs that have reached the end of their life as a EV battery, but are still usable as a battery for home?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You can go on eBay, and years ago, you could have gone on eBay and bought a used Nissan Leaf battery because those cars have been around for a while, since 2011. It's a bunch of Leaf batteries. Most of them are sucked up by commercial vendors. They pack them into trailers, put software on them to compensate for dead cells, and they run, commercial level, commercial building level power packs out of them, for backup power. You can have one delivered in your driveway, but you better know how to work with, you got to cut the case open with a torch, and you better know how to handle high voltage. It's not necessarily recommended, but yes, absolutely, they're available. You can buy one yourself. My
Mm,
solar installer talked me out of it. I almost did it because no sooner did I get that lead acid battery pack, that's beautiful commercial lead acid battery pack, than I find out about used Nissan Leaf batteries. And I looked at that and I go, wow, that's like several times the capacity of my lead acid batteries. And then fortunately, I got talked down from that ledge. But, if you're good enough, you can do it. People
yeah.
do it. Yeah.
The general advice is don't try this at home, right?
Do not try this at home. No, I mean, you have to cut the batteries out, sort out the bad ones, apply corrective software. Most guys put them in a server rack.
Mm,
They rearrange the batteries out of the Leaf and put them in a server rack configuration. Takes quite a bit of skill, but it can be done. But don't try yourself. These things have immense amounts of power in them.
mm. Another question is, do you recommend rooftop thermal panels to be used in conjunction with heat pumps?
Oh, can I handle this one, Ed? I'm doing all the talking, but can I take this one? Hmm. Okay, that was a good idea a few decades ago, but we have understated the efficiency of heat pump hot water heaters, which are electric, you just plug them into the wall. So our Ream was installed in 2017. It was one of the first put in Boulder. We have 8.5 years going on 9 years of data on it. Most of us coaches, Ed, myself, Paul, pretty sure,
One
Dave, we
year.
have Emporia Power apps. We monitor all the stuff in our homes. We experiment. My heat pump hot water heater is actually 7 to 10 times. That's 7 to 8, that's 700 to 1,000% more efficient than the most efficient gas hot water heater. We use on average, this is a 8.5 year average, we use about 38 therms, 38 kilowatt hours a month. That's equivalent to like 1.3, 1.4 therms of gas. In my mind, that's like free hot water. So they're
Mm.
so extraordinarily efficient. Um, going through the panels on the roof, the circulating pumps, the glycol. Um, it's a pretty marginal enterprise compared to the high efficiency you get with just a heat pump technology hot water tank.
And
Related
I
to
would
heat,
say,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's the correct answer for Colorado, but it might not be the correct answer for Hawaii.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Just different climates, some technology. So if you're on vacation to Hawaii and you're like, wow, a lot of houses have water heating panels on their roof. And that's because they got a lot of sun and they got a lot of heat and they never have to worry about the freezing and using a refrigerant like glycol, so on, a medium. The other thing
Yeah,
I
that
want to mention about batteries is that I believe that batteries and EVs are really an integral part of a future that not many people can see in their crystal ball. And that crystal ball is the the people who are running our utilities and the CEOs that are pulling down multi-million dollar salaries are hiring some really bright people. And they are doing business analytics at such a level that they're able to determine, like, what would it cost for me to dig up all along I-70 a gas pipeline and expand it to yay big so we can carry X 4 times the therms of gas up there per day. And they're doing the math and they're saying, not a good deal. We can run more electricity through the lines we already have. They're doing the same thing in our backyards, in our neighborhoods, going, you know, if most of us, at least in Excel territory, we all have peak electric rates, and then 75, 80% of the day, they're off peak. That peak is when the highest demand for electricity is coming. And they only expect it to grow because people are charging their EVs, they're cooking, they're doing all these things. And there are these phenomenon called data centers and other industries that are using more and more electricity. If they have to build a peaker plant, it's it's in the magnitude between 50 and $100 million enterprise and maybe years and years. So they're figuring out the business analysts that if we could put enough storage in these neighborhoods in the form of EVs or batteries, we can create microgrids and what they call virtual power plants, so that for those 3, 4 hours per day, when people are turning on their air conditioning and cooking and EV charging, we could run the cars both directions so that they would discharge out of your battery to reduce the peak demand period so they don't have to build a multi-million-dollar power plant somewhere else to meet only a few hours of demand. They're working on the software right now so that we can do that. And it's going to be incumbent on homeowners to figure out, like, not figure out, but to accept battery storage and EVs and put in chargers. Because right now, my EV charger could go bi-directional if the company who owns the software just threw a few code at it, and if Excel would allow me to discharge my car. And it has 87 kilowatt hours of electricity stored in it when it's full. That's the equivalent of like six, seven Tesla power walls. And I drive it around every day. So the future
And
is
that's a fun
storage.
subject, Paul. To expand even further, most of you probably have time of use rates for your electric service. And for an all electric home and a home where the folks are driving an EV, which is myself, we don't quite have it in Lions yet, but I expect to have it this year. It's going to be really exciting because with a very slight behavioral changes and a few different settings in your life, you will be using almost no electricity during the peak, when the electricity will increase to 2 or 3 times the normal cost that we're used to. And then for those other 18 hours a day, the electricity is going to go in half. Right now, my EV is running around town at about 1/3 of the cost of gasoline and no maintenance whatsoever, except for some tires. When we go to time of use and tell the car, wait till 9 o'clock tonight before you charge back up again, it'll be fully charged in the morning, and my running around will reduce by half. So it'll be at 1/6 the cost of gasoline. And the numbers I'm giving you are based on gasoline being $3.50. Right now, I just drove by the station today. I've driven by it a million times, but not stopped. And it was 480 something for basic unleaded. So as we go through these wars and whatever's going on with gas prices, the EVs are super exciting if you're concerned about the economics. They're really quiet and wonderful to drive. They're super quick. And so anyway, we would love to help you with that. And you can book a consultation at goelectriccolorado.org.
Related to that, maybe you could say a few words about, or Mary could at the end, say a few words about ChargeBug.
Yes, I
Yes.
definitely want to talk about ChargeBug, but can I just go back? A question I have in talking to friends who want to electrify or have done some things but aren't really sure what's next. Would you prefer that they do some research or homework before they call, or are you guys really open to having the conversation where maybe you're helping somebody create a plan that they're going to implement over a couple of years, or what's your ideal?
We are the research. They just they just talk to us. We have years of experience under our belts, and they're not talking to a coach all by himself. We talk to each other all the time. Ed Kean already alluded to the fact that he's our rebate whisperer.
Yes.
He's got a lot more patience than I do. So if you're talking to me and rebates come up, I'll carry you so far, and then I send you to Ed Kean, B, energy smart, and then Rewiring America website, other entities. And we do that back and forth with each. You're talking when you're talking to one coach, you're talking about all seven or eight, talking to all 7 or 8 of us.
Mhm.
So, and that's, we have years and years of experience. I call my house an experimental house. I'm always experimenting. You just heard I just swapped out a battery pack. Um, we're experimenting a lot with that. So yeah, we'll do the research for you and we'll help you. We'll guide you and take as long as you want.
That's great. I think it's probably important for people to understand that your service is truly educational and informative, not a sales funnel.
And it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Stu mentioned we would sell you something. I'm not selling anybody anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When we say sell, that's we euphemistically, we're just trying to talk you into the wonderfulness of this technology. We're just trying to talk you into the technology because it's amazing stuff. And to that, I want to touch on that because it just bugs me. This rooftop thermal panel. Here's the modern version of that. The modern version of that is one or two solar panels and then your heat pump hot water heater. Because when your heat pump hot water heater is running, it's only pulling 350 watts. In my day, that was 3 light bulbs. So you can power the heat pump hot water heater with a one optimally, pitched um, solar panel. So that's your modern version of thermal hot water.
So
Oh,
we're just about at the 7 o'clock hour. Before I turn it back to Mary, if do you have there's been this legislation in the state for balcony solar. Do you have any comments about that before we hand it to Mary?
Yes.
That was great because I was gonna chime in on Stewart's and say with the legislation now in place, you can buy those up to 2,000
Yep.
uh, watts, kilowatt hours of electric panel, plug it into your 110 outlet. You don't need a permit. You don't need all this other. And, it's a beautiful thing. That's probably ample to run most of your hot water on most days, maybe not gray and rainy, but most days.
Yep.
Before
Thank you.
you race out and buy that, let's have a call though, because there are a few nuances to it that'd be good to know.
Super.
Yeah, we might get that at the end of the year too. I think the actual approval. I know Polis signed it, but the actual implementation will be later this year, I think.
Mhm.
Yep.
Super. Well, thank you very much. And this has been tremendous, very helpful. And I'll turn it back to Mary.
great. Thank you, Chris. And on behalf of Empower Our Future, I want to thank you so much, Stuart, Paul, and Edward, for joining us tonight. Excellent information and some really super exciting concepts that you outlined. Um, just a reminder, next month we will have our Empower Hour in collaboration with the Colorado Renewable Energy Society, the Colorado Solar and Storage Association, as well as Physicians for Social Responsibility. And that'll be on a Wednesday, not our usual Tuesday, but Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. We'll be hearing from our legislators regarding the session that just wrapped up. So should be really interesting. And maybe we'll get a sense of when those balcony solar panels will be more, on your grocer's shelf. Um, and getting to when you use electricity mattering, thank you, Paul, for putting up that slide. We are really excited about and promoting an app called ChargeBug that helps you choose clean power by shifting your electricity usage to times of high renewables, i.e., when the sun is shining and when the wind is blowing. Just as an aside, I mean, that may seem obvious if you look out the window, but we have so much wind and solar on the eastern part of the state. Honestly, you don't actually always know if the sun is shining or if the wind is blowing. And ChargeBug is a renewable charging forecast app that it does know. You can find out more at chooserenewable.org or use the QR code That'll take you to a web page where you have the opportunity to choose either the Apple app or the Android equivalent. Download it, give it a whirl. It's really easy to use and just a great thing to get in the habit of, if you drive into the driveway or the garage, do you want to plug in? Is it clean? Can you wait a few hours? And it's not just for EVs only. Um, Switching your usage to the extent it works for you will make a difference. And that could be just delaying your uh, dishwasher start time. It could mean doing your laundry in the sun or, windy times of the day instead of maybe at night or on a gray day if you don't absolutely have to do it. Anyway, we're very excited about ChargeBug and thank Sinton Instruments and specifically Adrian, who is behind the development of that app. And finally, I want to take a moment and thank the other Empower Our Future communication team members who are integral to making these Empower Hours happen. They are Paul Cullinan, Chris Hoffman, Steve Whitaker, and Julie Zonizer. Thanks again so much for joining us tonight.
Great.
Have a
Thank
good
you for
night.
hosting us.
Thank you.
Yes, so
Thank
glad
you.
you could be here. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You all too.